Hello, everyone, and welcome to Humber's Alumni Interview. My name is Monica Manga, and I'm Assistant Facilitator in the Student Success and Engagement Department at Humber College. The purpose of the Alumni Interview is to connect with past Humber alumni and learn about their career trajectory before and after graduating from their program. Today, I'm super excited to have Anthony Nguyen, is a proud Humber alumnus and received his Master's of Arts in Student Affairs in Higher Education from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Anthony uses he, him, his pronouns. During Anthony's time in the University of Pennsylvania, he gained experience in residence life, student activities, and international education. Anthony found his way back to Humber in May 2019 and has been working for the Peer Assistance Learning Support ever since 2019. On Anthony's free time, you can find him playing tourist in Toronto, eating dim sum in Waterloo, or doing something queer in Pittsburgh. Thank you so much, Anthony, and joining me today for today's alumni interview. The first question I have for you is, can you tell us about yourself that led you to take the Bachelor of Child and Youth Care at Humber College?
Yeah, when I was in high school, I really got interested in doing some kind of counseling related work, something human services. And at that age, I think we know a lot about like occupations, right? So I thought a lot about like guidance counseling or social work, and that's what led me to looking at counseling related programs or child and youth care related programs. I specifically wanted to work with students and I didn't know what age. So it ended up being a really perfect program for me.
Exactly, especially where you're currently working. And so the next question is, what is your experience as a student at Humber College?
Yeah, so I grew up in Kitchener, which is about an hour west from Toronto, and my family immigrated from Vietnam to Kitchener. And so I applied to Humber because it's one of the few degree programs that exist for child and youth care in Canada. And I wanted to get out of my hometown for post-secondary. And so I got Humber's acceptance and decided to move from my hometown to Toronto.
So you came to the big city to get your education. That's pretty exciting too, and a real stretch sometimes. A lot of people may not leave their small towns, but really great experience as a student. Are there any skills that you developed from the program that you currently use today?
Yeah, I think that the program has really shaped who I am today, and it allowed me to get really in touch with my ethnicity as well as like my queerness. The program was very human services based, and during my program I worked on campus all 4 years at Humber, and so I was getting a lot of skills working on campus as well as what I was learning in the classroom, and I tried to really relate the two. The program, as well as everything I was doing on campus, led me to be interested in grad school, and that's what led me to get my Master of Arts in the US. And I think back to my experience, and it takes such a big team of staff members, let's say student services at Humber, as well as professors, faculty, academic, as well as like student success and engagement, who really shaped me and pushed me to get my master's. And the entire experience really has shaped me and provided me with so many skills that sometimes I don't even know that I'm using.
Right, absolutely. And it's great that you have like a bachelor with child and youth care, and you've also done your master's in the arts, which is a really interesting dynamics, especially when you're working with such a diverse group of students. Thanks for sharing. In addition to your classes, did you have any campus resources you used during your time at Humber?
A lot of the campus resources that I use were a lot of the co-curricular activities or the extracurricular things. I worked on campus all 4 years, for example. I worked in residence life, first year experience, and the international center. Um, I studied abroad, and so I was very connected with the international center. I did a lot of different study abroad opportunities during the summertime, and one place that I really frequented was the Student Wellness and Accessibility Center, especially for like the clinic for healthcare. I actually recently visited them because I work in the first floor of the Welcome Center and the clinic is on the second floor. To see a nurse because I had a finger infection. So it shows that some of these resources can continue to be accessed in certain situations,
Yeah,
even beyond your time, right?
absolutely.
Um, and
So
I think something so important to acknowledge about my experience too is that I had uh, financial resources, right,
mhm,
to access study abroad or just living in residence is you have to have a certain amount of privilege to live in residence, you know?
right.
And so when listening to this interview, I just wanted to highlight that as well. Everyone's experience is so different, and it's important to highlight that access isn't always available to everyone.
Absolutely. I believe there's a lot of resources available at Humber, but it's really trying to use them in while you are at Humber and find out the resources that are available. I'm glad your finger is okay though. So that's
Thank you.
so, in your opinion, what do you think students should focus on besides getting good grades?
Yeah, honestly, I have never been very motivated by grades. I was always a very average learner, and I think that your learning experience comes from so many different aspects of college or while you're at Humber. You can learn as much in a job or getting involved in a community as you do in a class, right? Um, I think that you can also pull in a lot of your experiences at during college, whatever that may be, and relate that to your academics as well. But overall, I would say think about not just being a student who comes to class, goes to class, and goes home. There are so many other things that you can take advantage of. And I just wanted to backtrack to one question that you asked about accessing resources. Because I was so involved, some of the resources also came to me. So one thing that I can really think about is having an amazing supervisor in first year experience, for example, who would create professional development experiences, who brought in a career and student success advisor during our staff meeting and helped shape our resumes to the field that we were going into, right? So one of the most impactful things that I had was meeting with a career and student success advisor who helped shape my resume, cover letter, application package to my master's application. And then with that support, in combination of everything I was doing, studying, doing on campus, I applied and was successful. And then afterwards, this person and I decided or ended up being colleagues because I came full circle back to Humber, right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
so many of these resources can come to you depending on how much you put into the experience.
Yeah, you're making a really good point because I find in your post-secondary education, it's really important to network with people because they're going to be either future people you're going to be working with because they might be in the same area that you're focusing it on. But that's amazing. But I guess this also leads to the fact that once you graduated, how did you land your first job?
A lot of so the first job that I landed came from the support, or I shouldn't say came from, but a big factor was the support that I had at Humber. And so when I was in my third or fourth year, I had a supervisor who told me about grad school in the US and attending the program because I would get a tuition waiver if I
Mhm.
worked for that institution. And you can imagine this was the first conversation that sparked my interest in pursuing my master's, right?
Right.
And so this was this required me to complete the bachelor's with an okay grades to build my resume while at Humber, to get those support from student success and engagement staff as well as faculty members.
Mhm.
And the whole combination of that led me to land a job as an assistant residence director with Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which provided me with housing, my tuition waiver, as well as a meal plan. And so I moved to the US for 2 years. And during that time, it was a really hard experience as a racialized queer person to be at a predominantly white institution.
Right.
But it was so worthwhile, and that's what made me understand that I wanted to work at Humber professionally.
Mhm.
And then before finishing my master's and working in residence life is when I started to look for careers at Humber, and luckily landed one to start a couple days after finishing my master's.
Well, that's amazing, and we're glad that you're still working at Humber. How did you manage your time with work and school?
Yeah, so I set really firm boundaries for myself with work and school, but I also had a big advantage because I always worked on campus.
Mhm.
As a student, I would work around 24 hours a week on campus,
Mhm.
and then some of that comes with really understanding supervisors who allow you, who are very accommodating. And so I would say that I'm a student who um, school came very naturally to me, and I set very firm boundaries on when I committed time to school. I prioritized my social life as much as I prioritized my academics. Um, and I think it's just important to acknowledge what commitments you need to put time into and how you can attend to all of these commitments.
Absolutely, you're making some really good points, because I think one thing that school does teach you is time management.
Mhm.
Just managing school, managing your social life, and if you are working, how to manage that. But that's amazing that you were able to do that and manage to get your bachelor's. Can you tell us about your current role?
Yeah, I am a learning services coordinator with peer assisted learning support. I work specifically at the Lakeshore campus and look mainly after peer tutoring. And so all students at Humber and Guelph Humber have access to peer tutoring every week. It's free. Folks can request time with an upper year student who has achieved 80% in the class that they need support in. So
Mhm.
let's say I'm a social service worker student and I need support in my writing class, Writ 100. There's going to be a second year social service worker student who I could request time with, who's already achieved 80% in that class, who could help me through that material. And so I look after, I do a lot of the hiring for peer tutors and then look after peer tutoring mainly.
Mhm.
Some of our other services include the learning skills workshops, our peer assisted study sessions, note-taking services, and we work really closely with the Math and Writing Center.
Great, that sounds like a really exciting role that you're in. Can you provide specific examples where you had to face a challenge, and how did you deal with it?
Mm-hmm. I talked a little bit about attending a predominantly white institution,
Right.
and before attending Indiana University of Pennsylvania, or IUP, I was able to visit and interview for the position. And I think when I visited, I said, "Oh, I can live anywhere for 2 years. I can do this." But as a queer, racialized person coming from more of a metropolitan area like Toronto, going to a school that has 11,000 students and only 100 of them look like me or are Asian,
Mhm.
came with a lot of its challenges. And
Mhm.
so I think I was so happy that I stuck through the experience, but it was definitely one of the lowest points, even though I was receiving a full ride scholarship through this master's program.
Right.
So I think it's important to find that thing to keep you going. And in this situation, it was really my awesome compensation package.
Yeah.
And find that thing to keep you going and realize that the experience that you have to go through when you reflect upon it, it's going to make you an even more well-rounded individual.
Yeah, absolutely. You're making some really great points. And I'm sorry you went through that situation, but it looks like you kind of came out of it a stronger person because of that experience.
Yeah,
Um,
and guess what? I got married. I'm married
oh,
to someone from Pennsylvania. So him and I got married in September, and that's the best thing that came out of that experience, even though it was really rough, right?
yeah.
So I'm always optimistic and really hope that everybody realizes it's corny to say, but everything happens for a reason is a big quote of mine that I live by, and just remain optimistic.
Well, congratulations on your marriage. That's amazing. How has your work changed because of the pandemic?
Yeah, the it's so interesting when we talk about norms now, right? I will never probably meet a student first in person. I will always offer a virtual meeting, or there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to virtual services being available online, but there's also barriers, right? It limits access, but also provides access for a lot more people. Technology can work so well when it works well, but it can also work so poorly when it crashes, right? So we were really lucky that our services were already offered in person and online. So it was a very easy transition to move everything online, and we already had that technology. But I can just imagine some other institutions that wasn't as fast. It didn't happen as quick, right? And it's going to be a lot more brainstorming and such. Some of our supports are going to stay virtual forever. And then we are going to transition back to having hybrid for both, or let's say our learning skills workshops. Some of our learning skills workshops, the attendance skyrocketed once we moved it online, and now we're going to keep it mainly online. And so it's just important to roll with the trends and to acknowledge that we're in a new reality with new needs. Being online is a whole new skill set, and the in-person is what we have to relearn. And a lot of reverse culture shock is going to happen and continue to happen these next few years.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was just still a lot of change, but it looks like your area was ready way in advance, and that's like amazing. Strategically really smart thinking, and just to help the employees in your department be more successful in their area. The last question I had is if you had any additional advice for current students at Humber.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? I had like a couple of things in my mind where I was like, oh, I'm going to share this. And now that you asked me that last question, I'm like, what was my advice? Let me think 1 second. My advice would be to, if you're in a tricky situation, stick it out. Time can be on your side, and it can turn into a very positive situation. As well, trust your gut. It's been so important to me to trust my intuition. Even when in a tricky situation, trust your gut. And lastly, make the most out of your experience by being involved, not only with the college, but with the community, with the services. And you have access to so much during this time in your life, and you don't realize it until it's gone. So take advantage, be an opportunist, is what I'd say.
Thank you. And that's actually great way to end the session. I just want to thank you so much for your time, Anthony, today. I think you've gave some amazing, valuable experience to the students that will be watching the session today. Thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me, Monica.